I personally believe one of the things we need to bring us out of this is contact tracing. That would be an amazing thing to have. But then the other side of my brain is like, oh God, no! Like I don't want them to know my data like that. I don't want that to happen. And then it's like, well, okay, what is the value currently of having that system in place? What is the future issues of losing that liberty? Because again, I joked earlier I'm a lefty horrible socialist. I do believe that the Bill of Rights America has is amazing. Like, I'm always so annoyed when Americans throw away their liberties. Everything is like, no, you have so many. Don't do it. Like, what are you doing? It's crazy.
Because not every place has them, even in the Western world, right? Yeah, like the freedom of the press and freedom of assembly, that does not exist even in quote unquote free countries. Yeah, and again, freedom's a smear of things, right? But again, I fully agree. Like we shouldn't rush into like surrender more freedom just because we can right now, and it might help in the short term, and it would help in the long term as well. There are other solutions to it as well, and I agree that we should be cautious about how much we do. But I want to get back to that thing about the internet. What did you call it? The internet immune system. Yeah.
Right. It's amazing how effective that can be at just shutting down any discussion. I think part of it is there's a very big incentive to monetize controversy, right? Like from right from the top, from like CNN on news, huge $1 billion corporations, to if I'm a Twitter account handle or a YouTube user, if I make controversy, I will get eyes on that thing. And it doesn't matter what the topic is. All our media is designed to do is to commercialize controversy. And that's what's happened here. I think that's what's happened with the thing. Like, the only reason they got eyeballs on their thing is because they were saying something potentially controversial. If it was, if it wasn't controversial, no one would be having any say. And that's not a good way to decide public policy. It's not a good way to decide, taxation or anything. We have to at some point work out how to get out of the situation that we found ourselves in. And this isn't like a left or right thing, like politics wise. That's a false dichotomy. Like, I don't understand how you arrived in a place where, I do understand, but it's complicated, right? How it's become so easy to say, okay, well, that's a left idea, this is a right idea. If you don't agree with us wholesale, you're out, you're gone. The guy from the genetics company talking to the other day, again, like
Kevin McKernan, you're talking about. Yeah.
I sent you a message saying, he's talking bollocks here. And I believe that, but the other clips I've seen, he said he's obviously a very intelligent guy. He's obviously done incredibly well. He's not an idiot. But if I was to make this a topic, I would just, the guy's an idiot. You shouldn't listen to anything he says. I think he should be more careful what he says, but that doesn't mean he shouldn't be allowed to say some of the things he's saying, right? And he talked about how he doesn't like the idea that vaccination has no liability. That's because he was talking about free market stuff. Again, I'm not an economist. I'm sure he knows more about economic. He's run companies. I've run a lab. But in my position, it's like, no, okay, well, the reason we don't do that is because if you didn't have freedom from liability, you'd have no vaccinations being made and people would die. And I think on wholesale, it's probably better that we have that system. We typically end up in places where we have the best of a worst situation, right? like democracy is the best of the worst type of every type of way to govern people is terrible, but democracy is the best of them, of the terrible ideas. It's the same with like how we currently legislate vaccinations or how we currently legislate most things. We have to find something that's is the best worst solution out there.
I'm struck with the internet immune system is the fact that this is actually a new immune system that has come online that we're as human beings barely. It's like taking on the mitochondria and incorporating it into your own biology, because on the one hand, the pandemic would not have been possible, the shutdown, I don't think, if you didn't have the internet. If you didn't have a way for people to rapidly spread information and to be able to hear from a whole bunch of different points of view, to be able to grab news, not just at noon and 5 and 10, which is when the old way was doing it. And there are some pros to it. You don't have the yellow journalism where that gets us into a battle in Cuba because 2 newspapers decide they want to make something happen. But on the other hand, you also then have both the proliferation of conspiracy theories, but then you also have people that are narrative gates and people that are saying the only views that we are going to accept or allow in here are the ones that have already been a part of the official gatekeeper network. And there are some ideas that are so dangerous or so wrong that a small group of people are going to knock them out. So I think it's that this immune system has not worked itself out for how to do this cleanly.
Yeah. And it's there's another tenuous link I can make here to phage. Part of do you know about CRISPR-Cas?
Yeah, go ahead. Though.
Yeah, CRISPR-Cas is the bacterial immune system. So the way it was discovered, I should say discovered, it was about 5 or 6 different groups in like early 2000s showed that it existed. It takes little stretches of DNA from viruses or plasmids and inserts it into the bacterial genome. And then when a new bit of DNA comes into the cell, it literally like scans against it like Control F find to see if it can find a match. If it finds a match, it then binds to that and cuts everything up and destroys that incoming DNA. So the bacteria is able to like become resistant to a phage, through an adaptive immune system. It literally learns what to become resistant to. Some very clever people use that as a way to like, okay, you can target that. Obviously, that you can, if you have that bit of DNA in that enzyme that finds it, you can then target it and then tell it to cut there. And now you've got a way to edit specifically down to a base pair. That's how CRISPR-Cas does genome editing. It started from this is another thing about free market economics, right? It started from like people looking at how a bacteria that makes yogurt, like it had this weird stretch of DNA in it. Like if we hadn't funded that research, which would never happen in a free market economy, you would no reason to look at this bit of DNA. We wouldn't have CRISPR-Cas genome editing. $1 billion idea. Like, so again, same thing. Like the internet immune system is being primed to like take ideas, scan, and say yes, this fits, or it doesn't fit, kill it. If it doesn't fit, kill it. And I think I'm optimistic that this is something we're going to move through. Like we're going to get better at it.
I don't think so, man. I think so. I have a buddy named Ryan Butner who coined a phrase that I think is a really interesting one, and it's called the Internet Archipelago, which is where instead of you having one giant universe where everyone is interconnected, and if I want to talk with somebody from Iran before we go to war with them, I just pull up a video chat and we talk it through. That's not actually how things worked out. What works out is that human beings are tribal by their nature. And when you find somebody that shares the same values as you, and a lot of times that's like a synchronization that makes life easier for you. You find a group of people, you know how they think. Now, as long as you think that way, you don't have problems in that group. You get to interact and engage and participate with them. But what that means for the internet is anywhere where there are bridges between networks that can't be meted out really well, that you can't find, then they split off, go find their own islands, and then talk about how horrible the other side is, and just reinforce a caricature, which means that instead of us having one large continent or one large universe, it's just a whole bunch of islands completely separated from themselves.
And so to put my conspiracy hat on for a little bit, there was a guy came to give us just before obviously the whole virus stuff happened. We had an actual in-person seminar, and he was talking about how these nodes of communication have been artificially manipulated. Basically, this hasn't happened. It would happen in some way by random chance, like you would expect. As you said, Group A and Group B, they don't want to talk, so they separate, and then they they argue against the imaginary Group A, and that reinforces it. He was saying that there's evidence of like network communication of like news information that has been directly manipulated to reinforce that solution even more. So, someone's gaining from this, right? The system wouldn't exist. The system wouldn't be in this state unless someone was making money off of it. It's like the easiest way to get down the rabbit hole, right?